absolute. The streets are buzzing. New York Knicks lay the smackdown on the Brooklyn Nets, man. Franchise record victory, 120-66, man. Talk about a get back right performance. Energy was there, and the New York Knicks made a statement, right? Albeit against the Brooklyn Nets. We've got lots to cover in this one as we recap the Knicks' biggest win in franchise history and the Nets' lowest score, fam, since 2016, going back 10 years. And we've got lots to cover in the latest news today, right? Trade wins circling around the league. Michael Scotto has an update on the New York Knicks' interest in some New Orleans Pelicans. Also, off-night stream. So we're going to go overtime tonight and talk about the Knicks' salaries moving forward, right? As Mitchell Robinson, right, is a free agent, right? And I feel like that's going under the radar, right? His contract is ending at the end of the season, right? Normally when the Knicks have a situation like that, right, they act accordingly. But Mitchell Robinson's been amazing all season, right, albeit minutes restriction and limitation. So we're going to talk about the road ahead and try to map out what the trade deadline might look like for the New York Knicks. But after we're done talking about, man, the absolute smackdown the Knicks laid last night, right, against the Brooklyn Nets, right? And hopefully they can carry that in to Philadelphia, right? This is a first of a 2-day rest, and our New York Knicks will hope to continue this momentum, man. As we'll take a look at the standings, the Knicks are at 26-18, right? They're only half a game ahead of the Raptors, right? I do believe Philly play today as well, so we'll take a look at that, and we'll take your questions, fam. I think we might go a couple of hours tonight, so lock yourself in, man. Replay squad, salute. Hit that like button. We'll talk about the Knicks' interest in the trades at the moment, right? What's the latest news on the Lynx, right? And some things being shut down in terms of a Karl-Anthony Towns potential move. But we will talk about Giannis, fam. Everyone's favorite Greek freak right now, because Giannis Antetokounmpo, man, the sun is setting on his Milwaukee Bucks tenure right now, and it's going from bad to ugly for them. And Giannis, obviously, man, he's so frustrated with the Milwaukee Bucks organization. There's a lot of reports that, well, he's frustrated with the team losing, and there's reports that obviously they'll try to be buyers to satisfy Giannis, but we'll see what happens, man. We'll talk about, a theory that Ian Begley has about the Heat having a good trade package. So, look, the Knicks are going to have competition if and when Giannis does get moved, and that move is going to happen, man. It's still most likely to happen, I think, in the summer, but who knows, man? Giannis is trying to take it day by day. So, welcome in El Tango, Johnny Chiba. What's good, Daniel Berry? Happy Thursday night, fam. We're headed into Friday, and hopefully, man, the weekend is going to be a good one because we have Philly, and that is going to be a chance to get back right, fam. Obviously, with the biggest win in franchise history, we're going to talk about in the spotlight, but we're going to give out, right, a first 3-game balls, right, and salute the performance, right, of Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, and the rest of the guys, including Landry Shamet, with his best performance since he came back from an injury, fam. Also, big news, Jordan Clarkson reacts to being taken out of the rotation, fam. A lot of speculation going around. What could the Knicks do with Jordan Clarkson now? Is it a hasty move? We'll talk about that in the spotlight, fam, because I do think Mike Brown, helped this team get right, but obviously Jordan Clarkson at his expense, fam. Was it a knee-jerk move? Is it a day-to-day situation, or are the Knicks and Jordan Clarkson headed for a separation? I'll give you my thoughts, fam. And I do think Jordan Clarkson is useful in a sparing usage. I do think Clarkson helped us. Obviously, big games, Christmas Day, NBA Cup final. I think you're going to need a player like that in the playoffs. Now, if we can replace that kind of production, I'm not going to lose sleep. If ultimately Clarkson does get bought out or traded, whatever comes with that situation, man, we'll talk about that more as well. But let's just take a look, man. I like to take a look at this graphic because so many people around the world have reacted to the beatdown of a lifetime, fam. 120 to 66. You look at that score and you think, if you didn't watch the game, you're like, everyone's first reaction is like, is that real, man? Is that AI? 66 points, man. It's more difficult to score only 66 points than it is to get beat down as bad as that. But what was the most impressive thing, fam? Off the top, you guys let me know. Was it the Knicks holding the lowly Nets to 66? Was it them winning the fourth quarter despite already being up by 40? They won the fourth quarter by almost 30 still. So they did not let off last night, man. They let off steam. And I did feel like someone read them the riot act, whether it be Dolan, the coach, Brunson, the captain. The players have downplayed that players only meeting. Ramona Shelburne first reported, but Hart was saying that the media is just blowing it up. Whatever it is, man, I hope they keep it in that locker room. Words were said, no doubt about it. Players looking each other in the mirror, and yeah, everyone got better, more to give. Obviously we've had the highs of the highs, man, being crowned NBA Cup champions, and there is that situation where we've seen how good we can play, right? And the players dropped, right? Mitchell Robinson got defensive player of the game as well, man. Could have given him a game ball. Shout out to Mitch on the end of a lot of those lobs. Mitch is going through some things personally in his life, but it's not affecting his play on the court as well. So we'll continue to shout you guys out. Welcome in New York City Grays. Dirty Dancer in the house says, nah, Deuce and Shamet are just better than Clarkson. New York City Grey says, Clarkson's not trash. There's room for him on the team. And I 100% agree with you, and look, that's not taking into account what Clarkson would want, because if he's going to be out of the rotation, I feel for him. And, obviously players like that want to play, man. He's 33. But the truth is, man, Deuce is playing so well. Landry coming back, started a little slow, but last night just was a full preview of what Landry is, capable and going to bring to this team now that he's back and fully healthy, fam. 6 of 6 from downtown, right? And OG Anunoby, fam, once shooting 40% on 3 is down to 30% now. So we need OG shooting to really get back up. But the fact that Shamet's come back in and given us the shooting that he provided last night, man, we're going to need that against Philly, Detroit, Boston, and the road ahead. So like I said, man, marathon stream tonight, man. No minutes restriction for the streets buzzing. We're going to talk about Giannis, the Knicks' interest in Yves Missi now, reporting Michael Scotto, very credible and great reporter based in Brooklyn. Many of you know Mike Scotto, Hoops Hype. Obviously, the long-term interest in Jose Alvarado has been there as well, but it does look like there was a report that Anthony Davis had requested a trade, but that's been kind of downplayed in the last 60 minutes, last hour or so. Great reporter out of Dallas, Mark Stein of the Stein Line, has just rebuffed a Yahoo Sports report that Rich Paul has, gone to the Dallas Mavericks and asked them to trade Anthony Davis. So, look, there's a lot of posturing, and I do feel like based on the, the report on the Cat links, and the conversations been had around the league by the Knicks was downplayed in the last 24 hours. So whether it be Leon's made a firm decision, or Dolan, or someone's in the Knicks organization has said, look, we're not going to trade, Cat or any major pieces. Maybe that decision's been made in the last couple of days. Maybe it's just being downplayed in the media. We know, man, buckle up, because the trade deadline is almost, well, the trade season is here, and the trade deadline, man, is fast approaching, right? Look at Giannis's body language last night, man. what do they say, man? When you touch your face, and you're giving an answer, fam, it usually is, a tell. Giannis Antetokounmpo looks beaten down, man. Um, he's such a competitor, man. That's why a lot of Knicks fans want Giannis. Right, he just wants to win. He's at that point in his career now, and I do think they're headed for that divorce, fam. And I think there's an increasing possibility something could happen in season, but it's all going to be up to Giannis. Like, I don't think it's going to be no one else that's going to dictate. Uh, he probably ain't going to request no trade formally, but we'll see what happens when the losing continues. But we're going to roll some more highlights from last night because Mo Diawara, man, also had some shine, knocking down a three late. There was extended garbage time in where, Clarkson got some late minutes, Kolek. And shout out to those guys, man. In the fourth quarter, they ran that score up like it was 2K on rookie mode. Like you play your younger cousin, your younger brother, and the New York Knicks situationals and rookies ran it up on the Brooklyn Nets fodder. And Diawara looked good as well, knocking down that deep three. Um, there was a video I had as well of him with the wingspan as well. I'll bring that up later. But some other situations around the league, Stefan Bondi has chimed in and said Jose Alvarado, Yves Missi, and the Knicks sending a second round pick to the Pelicans with Yabusele and Pacome Dardier could be something that's realistic, right? He did apologize. The graphic's incorrect. It would be the Pelicans getting a second round pick in this potential deal. But yeah, we'll take a look because, later I want to talk about the Knicks salaries, right? When we talk about that, obviously we all know Mitchell Robinson is going to be a free agent after this season, right? So I do think Mitch is going to be here for the rest of the season, but that doesn't mean on draft night the Knicks might not won't execute a sign and trade or an extension. 12.9 million. You guys see Mitch is expiring. I think that ties in to the links with an Yves Missi, right? And the Knicks potentially future-proofing the center spot for some reinforcements because Huck Porty hasn't taken that leap that a lot of us have hoped. And I think it's fair game to be looking at a Yves Missi because, upside, he could be a bit part player if he is acquired at the deadline. Obviously, for defensive purposes, could be a guy that could back Mitch up. And like I said, I do think Mitch is going to stay. It would be a bold move to trade Mitch in season right now, the way he is playing. So I would put that likeliness, damn near below 5%. I do think Mitch is going to be here to see the season out, especially in a championship or bust situation. But putting together a nice backup with upside would be the play. And so I'm not surprised that, according to Michael Scotto, fam, shout out to him on Ian Begley's Putback show, says, I did hear the Knicks are not only calling on Jose Alvarado, but also on Missi. So you guys let me know how you feel about that. Johnny Chibas salute says Knicks defense won the game. Offense initiated with the stops. Dirty Dancer weighs in on the Cat criticism, and people are too busy killing Cat for every fault to notice the fall off of OG and Macau. Yeah, got some feedback. Obviously, you guys voiced and weighed in your opinions on the last stream when I talked about some Cat trade scenarios based on Steve Popper's report. But I also prefaced by saying Cat is not the only player underperforming, and that obviously there's heat to go around. And what did they do, man? They aired it out. And like I said, maybe the front office, the coach, the ownership in lockstep saying, look, we're not going to shake things up too drastically, which gave these players a lot more confidence to go out there and really get on the same page. But again, we can't read too much into one game. Now, it was the beatdown of a lifetime, and it feels good, man. Feels good to beat up on the hapless Nets by 54 points. But we're going to take a look at the games coming up, fam. As tonight is the first of 2 off days, we can take a little bit of a deep breath, talk about what's happening around the league, what the Knicks could do at the trade deadline to improve the roster, but potentially not a blockbuster deal. I do think the Missi José Alvarado, links make a lot of sense for me because we need another ball handler. Does look like Tyler Kolek is out of favor right now with Mike Brown. Obviously, Clarkson, if he's out of the rotation, that's another ball handler that we're going to be losing as well. So you can bet, I think it's a safe bet, we are going to be bringing in one more ball handler. And obviously, Alvarado would be top of the chain right now. But Missi, a big man as well, with Huck Porty, not factoring in too much. Yabul Sele is going to be a guy that's going to be on a new team. I think we can safely say. But yeah, to the Shamit thing once and for all, I'll say, to the Clarkson thing once and for all, I want Clarkson to hang around because I just think he's a gunner that you could, he's a gun for hire that you can just throw out there in a close game. And you're still going to need a player like that, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with that. But look, if he's out of the rotation, man, he's a 33-year-old veteran, and I do think he's not going to want to. It's a Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier situation all over again because this guy literally accepted the buyout so that he could choose the New York Knicks, and play for a winning team. And if he's getting benched now, I mean that ain't a good feeling. That can't be a good feeling for Clarkson, who I feel for him because he helped us win that NBA Cup and has had some success in his short stint with the New York Knicks. Now, around the league also, some other teams are interested in Yves Missi, and the Indiana Pacers have floated a Benedict Mathurin deal, according to Jake Fisher, too. The Detroit Pistons potentially open to moving on from Jaden Ivey as well. Looking at a player like Herb Jones on the Pelicans too. So I feel like the Pelicans are going to be active, but it does look like Zion is off limits, according to some reports close to the team as well, right? On the Clarkson News, Christian Winfield of the Daily News got some great quotes. Says, Clarkson says he wasn't approached about being benched. Says he's taken it in his stride, but also made it clear he knows he can help this team and any team win basketball games. So, yeah, this could be the beginning of the end. We'll wait and see. The Athletic has put together a trade big board ranked number 1 down to 25. So we'll take a look at that now. Anthony Davis is at the very top, most likely to get traded. New York City Gray says Giannis is the only available piece that I would take. In the blockbuster, definitely. But I feel like the roster still needs some tweaks towards the end, especially with the Yabul Sele situation. So I think we can expect that to happen, man. Yabul Sele, Dardier, and see if you can get back, some cost-friendly depth pieces. But it's great to have Shamet look like he did the other night, man. Johnny Chibas has Shamet over Clarkson on both ends, more of a team guy. Yeah, that's factual. I feel like Shamet was just a guy that we've been missing so much, in and out with the shoulder injuries, but he's back. He's fully healthy now, and we're starting to look at how good he can be, fam. He's going to be hopefully a demon come postseason, right? Michael Porter Jr., Ja Morant, Domantas Sabonis, Kobe White, Gafford, Claxton, Mathurin, Dosunmu, Grimes, RJ Barrett has been shopped around as well, according to reports, right? The Toronto Raptors, right? I remember after the OG trade, man, I had Raptors fans coming at us talking about y'all got fleeced, After RJ Barrett had a couple of 30-point games, they were feeling great about that pickup. Right now, looks like RJ Barrett is not going to be a Toronto Raptor for very long, man. What a sad story, right? RJ Barrett would be moving towards the journeyman type career now on his third team before the age of, 27, 28, whatever age RJ is right now. Um, yeah, we know Kaminga's going to get traded. Uh, what else? We've got Anthony Simons. I think the Boston Celtics are looking to be buyers, fam, at the deadline, right? As I just pull up the standings now, real quick, right? The Celtics are 1.5 up on the New York Knicks. So yeah, winning in Philly is going to be critical, but the Celtics are going to be buyers at the deadline, right? Simmons or Simons, however you say it. Um, some younger players emerging on their squad, right? They've got some room, some flexibility to make some tweaks. The Raptors, I think, will try to be buyers or sellers with RJ. Um, what else are we looking at? The Pistons, Jade and Ivy, maybe they want to get in on a Benedict Mathurin type deal. That'd be scary hours, fam. A lot of these teams are flexible. That's why I'm needing the New York Knicks to keep it active and try to get some defensive reinforcements, fam. Right. If you're not going to blow it up or retool majorly, I think some defensive tweaks is what we're looking at. And if you want to send Clarkson to a more helpful situation for him, at least try to get back a guy who could defend, right, situationally. But yeah, I think Kolek's just going to have to be patient. Hopefully he sticks around. But with Kolek, we'll talk about the salaries moving forward. We know Dardier's money is on the books, right? It's more than likely he'll be traded along with Yabul Sele, who has the player option, the 5.7 million, right? Right. I thank the Lord every single night that we have Deuce Miles McBride on another year of cost control, 3.9 million for next season. But Mitchell Robinson, man, to me, when I'm looking at this graphic of the Knicks' future salaries, that is the elephant in the room staring at us right now. What are the Knicks going to do with that salary slot? Right. Like I said, I think Mitch is going to be here for the entire season, and hopefully he helps us win a championship and we address it in the summer. But draft night, there could be a lot of possibilities if there is a Giannis deal to be had, because you could do Mitch in a sign and trade. You could do a lot of different things, but do I see the New York Knicks extending Mitchell Robinson? I think that's a unknown situation right now, because they would have come to an extension if they were, hell bent right now. So I think they're just happy to let it play out when you look at Mitch's salary slot. But something got to give with that in the summer. And coincidentally, the Giannis Antetokounmpo situation is right there in the background, ladies and gentlemen. So that could be a salary piece that we're looking at. And once again, I don't anticipate Mitch getting moved in season. But the fact that the Knicks are expressing interest in Yves Missi could be potential future proofing, in the case of a future deal. Let's see. LB New York City 89 says, yeah, on that note, if we execute a sign and trade with Mitch, it has to be a team that he wants to go to, though. Yeah, look, we're talking to Yves Missi in New Orleans. Coincidentally, that's, Mitchie's hometown. So, not to say the two are linked, we could be, hell-bent on keeping Mitch and getting Yves Missi. But it is a coincidence that, New Orleans is Mitch's hometown. And dare I say, they would be interested in a talent like Mitch. So should everyone right now. Uh, on the win, Johnny Chiba says he can't judge the Knicks against bad teams. Yeah, just got to look at larger sample size. I do think, our New York Knicks are capable of beating the best team in the league. We're beating the second seed Spurs, man, which I don't think the Knicks are getting enough credit for, fam. Everyone just seems to, be waiting to pounce when they lose, and, the Thibodeau apologists and the haters, relishing the Knicks slide. But when they were knocking the Spurs down and, almost beating them for the second time, I don't think the Knicks were getting enough credit back at that point. We were playing some of the best ball in the league with a top offense and a league average defense. But look, the San Antonio Spurs, they continue to go from strength to strength at 30 and 14. They're the second seed in the West, and the Knicks, have made improvement on last season by beating a team that's actually good, a very good. Last season we couldn't beat Cleveland, OKC, we couldn't beat LA, we couldn't beat the Cavaliers or the Boston Celtics. At least I think we've shown our ceiling is higher than last season, right? Our our basketball is higher in terms of the ceiling, right? And we've shown that by beating the San Antonio Spurs, you know. Uh, Now, yes, we have to talk on a new report on Dink Pate, ladies and gentlemen, right? So, a lot of people are feeling like, why didn't Dink Pate get signed to a two-way? Well, concrete reports are coming out, Johnny Chiba, that Dink Pate's agent and Dink Pate have made the decision to refuse signing a two-way with any of the teams because they want to preserve his college eligibility, fam. NCAA. Dink Pate is seriously considering his NCAA eligibility. Don't forget, he never played college. He went the G League Ignite route. And so we know there's big NIL money. And dare I say, Dink Pate might be back in college next season. Now, him and his agent have agreed they're going to play it out for the rest of the season on Westchester. They're not planning to sign with any NBA team yet on a two-way. If an NBA team comes with an actual confirmed roster deal, standard roster deal, they would entertain that proposition. But right now, they're wanting to preserve his NCAA eligibility, fam. So I got to apologize from that standpoint where I was assuming the Knicks maybe weren't calling up Dink Pate on the two-way, but we have confirmation now that Dink Pate has refused a two-way deal because he's just not interested in that. He wants to continue playing in the G League or be open to going back to college or going to college or waiting for an actual standard roster deal right now. So I think that's a smart move, personally. I think if you're Dink Pate, you're his agent, being on a two-way don't really help the situation too much if you can earn major bucks back in college and work on the game, or land a proper deal where you can get minutes on a team, maybe a tanking team. So that is the current situation with that situation. New York City Gray says, CT, who is these pieces going to replace on the roster? If Alvarado replaces Deuce or Brunson, we can't play 12. I say keep the team the same. Yeah, great points. Let me just bring up the roster right now. I think like what we're seeing that's changed recently is Kolek. Obviously, Kolek's a guy that the Knicks hoped could be, a ball handler and a backup, and maybe in the case of Clarkson losing minutes. But Kolek's form has dipped. Now, I would be open to keeping Kolek for a short stretch in the game just to keep his confidence, keep him developing. But I understand that the stakes are high. So I think Clarkson's firmly, Kolek and Clarkson now are firmly out of the rotation. So if Jose Alvarado comes in, I still think Mike Brown could go 10. You obviously got Deuce, you've got Mitch off the bench. Hart would be continue to start, I believe. If Clarkson's out of the rotation and Kolek is out of the rotation, that opens up a spot for Alvarado, fam. That's where I see those minutes coming. Anything else would be probably situational where, Missy might be a guy where if Mitch is in foul trouble or Cat is out, we know Huck Pority, Trey Jemison haven't taken that opportunity at the moment. And Yabusele is getting minutes, but he would be obviously outgoing. So there's minutes to go around, I think, at the power forward spot. Or if a Mitch injury or Cat foul trouble situation. And I do think with Kolek and Clarkson out of the rotation, there is ball handling minutes to go around right now in the playoffs too. Maybe they are looking to tighten that rotation up down to a 8.5 situation right now. We'll see. Marta Scott says Ja Morant situation. Yeah, I think Morant might get moved, but the Knicks might be in a 3-team, but not with Morant even getting close to coming with that situation. Um, Benedict Mathurin says slow runner. Very surprised that he's on the block. He has superstar potential. Yeah, I think it just comes down to financial flexibility. With the Pacers being cheap. At the end of the day, fam, they've got their starting unit. You got Mathurin, so you've got Neesmith, you've got Nemhard, and you've got Tyrese Halliburton, fam. That's all the ball handling that they need right now. Um, so yeah, the Raptors, TSN can report the Raptors appear willing to part with a combination of IQ, Pirtle, and RJ. Right, they spent big on Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes. Those guys are improving the squad, right? So, man, RJ Barrett. There's talk that he might end up in Sacramento. I think that would probably be a good fit for RJ, right? Now, we can offer you some insight too. Reports Chris Procyon and clutch points, right? The Knicks had a solid practice to get right and lay the smackdown on the Brooklyn Nets. And we had a guest, right? Former player who played under Mike Brown, legendary point guard out of France, Tony Parker, fam, was a guest at the Knicks practice 2 days back. So, obviously that practice helped. It paid dividends, and the New York Knicks, man, put in their best performance on the season, right? So shout out to Mike Brown also for bringing in some guests into practice, fam. Legendary point guard Tony Parker, championship experience coming in. So players only meeting, we had a good practice to get right, and the Knicks looked a lot more locked in. More so, the energy, the effort was where you wanted to see. Execution was obviously a lot easier against a putrid defense like Brooklyn, but winning breeds confidence, and that's the biggest thing for me, fam. Right? Your chest is out, your head is up, you're feeling confident. You beat a team by 54 points. That's just good vibes. We ain't gonna overreact to a Nets win too much, to a Knicks win over the Nets too much. But it's all about just building confidence. Got the 2 days rest now, and if we carry this into Philadelphia, and also have another great performance, then we are back on track. We are back on the right track, right? We have some quotes from Kat. Kat was asked if the Knicks players only meeting helped the Knicks get on the same page. Kat said, I think losing 4 in a row better get everyone on the same page. So Kat giving his thoughts, right? 4 losses in a row, better get everyone on the same page. So everyone was feeling the heat, the pressure, and the Knicks played like it, putting the all-time beatdown franchise record 54 points. And you had people not believing it was real, right? It was so, out of a video game-esque on rookie mode. But shout out to OG. He looked a lot more locked in. Brunson was moving the ball quicker. Karl Anthony Towns was making better decisions with the basketball as well and was efficient. And everyone was just a killer. Everyone was a killer. And, obviously we want to play the Brooklyn Nets all the time, but we're going to have to show that, we could play our best against really good defenses. And, we owe Philadelphia. Yeah, we owe Philly a good beatdown. So let's see. Dirty Dancer says, yeah, with Mathurin, I'm in Arizona. Fans, he's never been interested in defense. Yeah, I think teams are looking to consolidate with fit as well. Like, don't forget, you got to give up something to get something. Like Jaden Ivey's a good player, but he just is on the outside looking in with Detroit. Benedict Mathurin's the same thing. Like, think about it. If you've got Neesmith, Halliburton, and Nemhard ahead of you, how can you be a max guy and fulfill your potential with 3 guys ahead of you? Players are looking at this like a business, fam. Don't forget, not every player is most passionate about basketball. Some of these players are looking at this like it's a job first, you know. I can't fault them that way. You know, they want to finish their careers with 200 million in the bank, right? If you're the fourth option on a team, you might not be able to get that bag. So some of y'all are just looking at it like a basketball fit perspective, but it's also a business first and foremost, right? And that's why we go back to Mitchell Robinson. Yeah. Notice he's always talking about touches, his role on offense, lobs, being fed. Yeah, all of that's good for the confidence, but it's all about, you know, how can he earn his max contract? Or how can he earn his maximum capacity, right? If he's a 20-minute bit part player, right, he might not be able to earn what he wants to get, right? So there's more to meets the eye than just touches, fam. It's all about, you know, players wanting to maximize their careers right now. And same with Clarkson. Do you think Clarkson accepted a buyout minimum salary to play on the minimum salary for the rest of his life? No. He took this opportunity to take a buyout, come to the Knicks. Best case scenario, he wants to show out. And then he wants to get back on the payroll, ladies and gentlemen. That's why he would be, you know, not happy about being out of a rotation right now. That's why a guy like Kemba Walker was upset as well. Derrick Rose, it ended poorly towards the end of his tenure as well. Same with Evan Fournier, right? It's bad for business when you're getting benched. It's not just about basketball in terms of the minutes with that situation. D. Grant, welcome in. Knicks need Mitch. I know this is a difficult situation, but I do not think the Knicks can win without Mitch. Yeah, without Mitch and I think another guy like Mitch. I think we need adequate backup. Um, unfortunately, Huck Porty hasn't really taken that step, in my opinion. And we are a top-heavy roster in terms of salaries as well. So we are going to be looking at a guy who's, either on a rookie deal or, a diamond in the rough, Look at that Cisse guy, man, on the two-way with Dallas. He lit us up on the two-way, Cisse. So, we need to find some diamonds in the rough like that, or, bank on a young prospect like an Yves Missi. But yeah, I think Mitchie's going to be here till the end of the season. He's imperative to the Knicks' chances of winning that chip. But beyond this year, man, I can't promise nothing. All bets are off in terms of how much Mitch wants to get paid, what the front office sees for his future role. All of that is in question. Giannis Antetokounmpo wanting to come up in here. Once the season's done, we'll be doing a full autopsy, obviously, but I do think Mitch is imperative and we need him to be maximum healthy, right? And play to his maximum capacity. And he's been absolutely dynamite this season. Great comment from David M. I feel like our ceiling is higher, but our floor is also lower. Our ceiling is higher, but our floor is lower. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you might look at it like Thibodeau. Thibodeau raised the floor in terms of players playing harder every single game, and the Knicks resting some guys, taking a bit more of a lax approach to the regular season. But in the end, our ceiling is going to be higher. That's the argument I would make against dudes talking about Tibbs and, the Frank Isolas and the OGs talking about, the Knicks making a mistake, firing Tibbs and that. I think, yeah, ultimately the playoffs are going to be difficult. There's no promises, but I think the Knicks are making the right approach to the regular season. Now, some people are anti-NBA Cup, and if they could do it all again, they would tank the Cup and get that rest, and then hopefully we didn't go on that slide. But truth is, we never know. Maybe we were going to go on a slide anyways. The schedule got tougher. Some guys got banged up. Guys sat. We lost a couple of tight games. Phoenix, we made a comeback. It's not like the Phoenix losses were disgusting. The Dallas loss was disgusting. And there was a couple of other bad losses, but the Phoenix ones, there was a bit of a frustration, but the Knicks were right there towards the end. Um, the Spurs one, we blew it away. We had the great lead, but yeah, I don't think this cup hangover is too much of a deal. I think we were always going to hit adversity, no matter what. For 82 games, it's hard to keep up that same level of energy and intensity. It just is what it is. We are a very top-heavy squad, and that's why the signings of Clarkson, Yabusele, they were so important. That one of the young rookies, Kolek, Hakporidi, or Dardier, or somebody took a leap. We were always going to need a couple of these fringe guys to be real guys. Unfortunately, it's been up and down, but we are looking to bring in some bankable, talent in an Alvarado, I think, and sell a Yabu. Because I don't think that 5.5 million has obviously helped us, in terms of making that off-season signing. And obviously Malcolm Brogdon retiring as well did throw a little bit of a spanner up in the work, fam, too. Yeah, J Dub. Yeah, I talked about Dink Pate. Welcome in. Dink Pate doesn't want a two-way. He's refused two-way contracts so that he could maintain his college eligibility too. So yeah, again, he's looking at his best pathway into the league and getting minutes. Dirty Dancer says Raptors are finally decent and they want to break it up. Make it make sense. I don't know what kind of usage RJ's getting, but yeah, you need RJ on the ball. So maybe they're looking at it like they got Scotty. They want to get some more off-ball kind of guys. I think it was a similar issue in New York. Randall was here with Brunson. RJ was just never going to get the level of usage for RJ to shine, to his level. D. Grant says Knicks don't need an Alvarado. He's too small. Knicks' backcourt is small enough. You got to deal with Cade, SGA. It doesn't solve our issues, like you said, but we need ball handling. And what do we do if Kolek and Clarkson are out of the rotation? That makes us even more weaker, fam. So, you're going to run Brunson into the ground in terms of, the only ball handler. Deuce McBride is going to struggle with pressure in the playoffs too, with ball handling pressure. And Hart is not a true point guard. So, whilst I hear your point on Alvarado being undersized, we need more ball handling. But also Alvarado on the defensive side can pick up full court. Man, that's something the Knicks have been lacking in terms of picking up full court, fam, full court pressure. Now you might look at it like, okay, maybe Mike Brown starts to play, Diawara more. I get that. I get that. Possibility. You could throw Diawara for more minutes and just rock with him. For defensive purposes, he can handle the ball a little bit. Landry is back healthy now. Maybe you could say Landry Shamet is that other guy who could, at least initiate some of the offense. But look, I still feel like we need another ball handler, fam. Whether they're 6'6" or 5'6", we need another ball handler, fam. That's just the way it is right now. And we already know we're going to move on from Yabu's salary, most likely, and Pacome Dardier. So if we can get back some talent. Now, Alvarado wouldn't actually be at the top of my list. It would be a guy like an Ayo. Yeah, fam. It would be like a bigger guy that could defend and handle. Benedict Mathurin, Jaden Ivey, Ayo Dosunmu, those kind of guys. We'll talk about that. But look, what's interesting to me now, guys, is we really look at this salary situation, right? Putting Mitch aside, the Knicks could put together some decent salary with Yabu, Dardier, and Jordan Clarkson now. Right, so we got 5.5 Yabu, we got 3.1 with 3.6 with Clarkson, right? So that's 9 mil. That's 9 mil, and then you add on Dardier. You add on a Dardier, even if they were to maybe want to cut bait with Kolek, I wouldn't. But Kolek's salary, added on, the Knicks could get to 11. The Knicks could get to about 11, 12 million with three guys. So that's interesting. We know Dosunmu's on 7 million. We know a guy's on 9 million. I think it's Goga. There's a big man, Orlando, they're reaching out to teams, gauging the landscape for a Goga Bataze as well. Another backup big, Jalen Smith on Chicago, is on a $9 million deal as well. So yeah, the Knicks can get to that, decent salary number, fam, and really maybe bring in another piece that is on the more serious side. Uh, like I said, yeah, with here in the spotlight, yeah, we don't need to touch on it too much more. Clarkson, wouldn't be surprised if he gets bought out or moved on, whether to free up another roster spot to help us out, whether just to help Clarkson out and get on a squad that, he might get more minutes. Look, if you're in Mike Brown's doghouse, we're seeing how that played out with Keon Ellis. So I think it's a little premature. I would keep Clarkson around, but you just don't know what could be had for the salary accumulation. If the Knicks could aggregate his salary with Yabu and with Pacome Dardier, we might be able to get something we need. Great by Leon, swearing IQ's payday when he goes down to a mid-level contract. Should be actively pursuing him. Yeah, I think it's been tough, man, with IQ's injury situation. Also, the Knicks took that bet on Deuce McBride, and Deuce is having a career year, continues to go up, man, every single year. So, yeah, that just paid off dividends again. Also, you got a guy like Landry, man, earning peanuts. You got a guy like Landry Shaman earning the minimum, right? Not to throw shade on IQ, but if Landry's giving you 15 to 20 points in a limited role as a microwave, I mean, it's hard to look at quickly on 30 mil and say that that's a good deal. I think the Raptors, bit off more than they could chew. And maybe they weren't expecting to take too much of a leap too quickly, pun intended. But here they are, and he's on the outside looking in. Slow runner salute. I like this one, Jock Landale, man. Jock, I know Jock, man. In terms of his career, followed him around the league. He's an Australian big man. Had some injury issues, but he's fully healthy now. He's very productive on a minimum salary for the Memphis Grizzlies. So I don't see the Memphis Grizzlies moving on from him, but yeah, he's a name that could be a solid backup big. He's not going to complain about minutes. He can stretch the floor a little bit, rebound, block some shots. He's not very athletic, not great defensively, but again, he's a very productive big man in terms of being able to do a little bit of everything. So we'll see how that plays out too. That's a good name. Now, yeah, in terms of the Cat situation, so there's been new reports come out that the Knicks aren't. Ian Begley today confirmed on the putback that the Knicks aren't entertaining offers with Karl Anthony Towns at the moment. So we take that for what it's worth. The Knicks could be going down that approach, like I said, to focus on getting everyone on this squad together and playing the best that they can play, and just trying to improve the roster towards the end of the bench. That's a very high possibility, and then make bigger moves in the summer as well, and see where we're at. Also, a name that has been confirmed that the Knicks are interested in is Najee Marshall. Lit the Knicks up, right? He's from New Jersey, and he's comfortable ball handling, taking guys off the dribble, scoring, using his size as well. He would be a solid pickup, in my opinion. D. Grant says Knicks need to get bigger in the backcourt. I would go after Najee. And yeah, I think that's a solid name. I think in terms of the salary, I think the Knicks could get to that get to that range, fam, as well. I would be calling up the Portland Trailblazers, seeing what's up with Kamara, fam. Tuamani Kamara is a name I wanted the Knicks to look at earlier, fam. Something tells me that the Portland Trailblazers are only going to be interested in moving on from Drew Holiday and Jeremy Grant, some bad salaries, fam, as well. That's not where we're at right now. So, again, for those that have just joined us, let's look at this trade power rankings, right? Now, yeah, we talked about Goga Batadze, Jonathan Isaac. Those would be some names I'll be looking at from the Orlando perspective. Brett Siegel, right? Reports that the Magic are open to moving on from those two, and Tyus Jones could be a name. We know that the Knicks have had interest in the past in Tyus Jones and Trey Jones as well. So that could be a name that they look to for ball handling, right? But the trade big board right now. So how many of these guys are going to get traded? Anthony Davis, that's a high possibility. Everyone else high on this list: Ja Morant, I think Sabonis, Kobe White, Nick Claxton, right? The Knicks are 13-0 against Nick Claxton since he went out there and made those foolish comments now that have become a meme, a sensation around the world now, talking about how he's never lost to the Knicks before. The Knicks have now gone 13-0 against Nick Claxton, man. He's looking sorry right now. Quentin Grimes, that's a surprising situation. If I'm Philadelphia, I'd be trying to sell high on PG and get his salary off the books before Quentin Grimes. But Quentin Grimes could be, had, I think, because they've got Maxey now. Obviously, they've got McCain. They've got, VJ Edgecombe's been a revelation. What does that mean for Quentin Grimes and his salary demands right now? Quentin Grimes, again, wants that bread. He wants a situation where he can play right now. So it's a lot of posturing with these agents. Nostalgic Nick, salute, says Jose, definitely on the way. Yeah, I could see that as a solid fit. Like John Gutierrez says, Jose's a dog. Yeah, I'd be open to it. I know it's not going to solve all our issues, and I know, fans want a bigger guy in terms of, positionally guarding, guarding up. Ideally some wings that can handle, but we just need ball handling, like I said, and a guy that could pick up, full court. Yeah, there is going to be a lot of trades around the East that could shape the Knicks' competition. Is Vucevic going to get traded finally, man? We don't know what the Bulls are thinking, man. Are they in? Are they out? Are they in between? Like they've always been, ladies and gentlemen. I do think that the Boston Celtics are going to do something with Anthony Simons. He seems to be the odd one out. Keon Ellis, is there a potential reunion with Mike Brown? Again, I don't know, man. Sacramento are very open to to shaking things up. Jeremy Sohan, we've heard those links. Leon Rose hasn't pulled the trigger yet on any deal with Keon. But we do know that the Knicks are interested in Najee Marshall. Fam could confirm the Knicks are interested in Yves Missi and Jose Alvarado. Right. There's been some discussions around Jeremy Sohan, but again, the Knicks might not be wanting to go down that path. Again, the big elephant in the room is Giannis and the Bucks, right? They are in a tailspin, right? They're ready for a crash landing. Bobby Portis, man, getting into it with the Atlanta Hawks the other night, and the OKC Thunder, I think, as well. Right, Bobby Portis probably getting frustrated with that situation as well, man. That locker room is ready to blow up, man. That locker room ready to explode, man. Even if I'm Giannis' teammate, I understand his frustration, but he's saying some crazy stuff in the locker room post games now. Right. He's literally calling out everyone. He's like, "We're not playing hard enough, man. Guys don't want to try. Guys don't want to win." I mean, if you're his teammate, you're thinking right now, man, just get the hell out of here. So there is a real possibility that this Milwaukee Bucks locker room, man, just implodes right now before the trade deadline. Right. The only thing that I think can cure what's going on right there with that Bucks situation is if they make a really big win now move, like a Ja Morant. That's going to quiet Giannis down. It's going to quiet some dudes down. Maybe they go a Zach LaVine. Maybe they could get, DeMar DeRozan. Maybe they could get, someone else. But the Miles Turner thing, man, it never made sense to me with Miles Turner. Never made no sense. Waving Dame. Altango says, I like Benedict and Ayo. Yeah, man, I'd go for Jaden Ivey as well. It depends, I guess, what his salary is worth. Deuce is going to be a free agent in a year as well. Don't forget we need speed, we need pace, and Jaden Ivey is a blur. Would Detroit and the Knicks do a trade right now? That's open for speculation. Probably doubtful. Maybe a 3-team trade. There's a lot of 3-team trade possibilities right now. John says Najee Marshall would be great. Agreed. Glenn says, CT, what I do know is that we have to make a trade. We can't stay how we are. Shake things up and not just a fringe move, okay? So you feel like the Nets win was more of just to get right, but the root of the problems are still remaining. Look, we're going to find out real soon, fam, because as I hit on this, Sexton is also, there is speculation now that the Hornets are going to move Sexton for a young piece or some draft capital. So unfortunately, Sexton's making 18 million. So the Knicks can't quite get to that salary level with Yabu, with Clarkson and Dardier. That's not high enough. But it looks like Colin Sexton will get moved, in my opinion. Man, John Collins, Malik Monk. Malik Monk's an interesting name, because I do think Sacramento is going to be active. But based on, Glenn's comment about getting right and the Knicks shaking it up, right, look at this schedule coming up. Philly, Sacramento, the Raptors, Portland, and then Lakers coming up, Washington, Denver, Detroit, Boston, Indiana, Philly before the All-Star break. So are the Knicks going to go above 500 in this stretch coming up? We are only down to 8 games over 500 right now, right? Can we push ahead, right? Can we get back those games that we threw away, right? And climb up the standings right now? If the season was to end and we're in the 3rd spot, look, I'm not going to be mad at that, but we are going to be on a collision course with Boston, in the 2nd round. As I pull this up once again, the schedule, the standing, sorry. Shout out to everyone joining us. Smash that like button. Let us know your thoughts up in here. We shout it out and we keep it buzzing. The New York Knicks are 1.5 back of Boston right now. If the Knicks can't push ahead and overtake Boston and the season ends as the 1, 2, and the 3, the Knicks will face the Celtics in the 2nd round. Right. The Knicks have to finish 2nd to avoid the Pistons until the final round. But the Knicks and the Celtics would face off in the 2nd round. So it is what it is. Buzzer Beater Salute says, I looked at Clarkson's numbers, right? And they were comparable to Campaign. Yeah, look, shout out to Campaign. He had his flaws, but he was active, aggressive. He was a solid piece on a veteran minimum. He became unplayable towards the playoffs, but yeah, he was a regular season kind of dude. But I do think that, um, he's a guy with Clarkson, right? He just needs to be reined in, you know. With Clarkson, unfortunately, I think it's just defense that's hurting us the most, you know. Not going to say Clarkson's been crazy offensively. He hasn't really like hijacked the offense. I think, which is actually a quote that he said. I think he said along the lines of like, I haven't really, you know, tried to take over the offense, but I do think from a defensive standpoint, there's just so many liabilities that you just can't play all of them. You got Brunson, you got Cat. You're playing another guy like Clarkson in the rotation. You're going to struggle to defend at a high level. So also they might just really prefer Alvarado. They might just think, look, you know what, Kolek, we'll sell what we got on on Clarkson. We'll keep Kolek for the future, but we'll bring in Alvarado. Uh, we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I agree with the IQ situation, like you guys are talking about. Yeah, can you get a Goga Batase or a Jonathan Isaac? Like Buzzer says here, I like Isaac, and I do think that would be a good match. We need length, we need some shot blocking, we need some more of those kind of guys on the defensive end. Um, okay, Dirty confirms here. Grimes has the no trade clause, loses his bird rights if he's traded as well. Okay, so maybe he doesn't want to get traded yet. Um, we'll see how that plays out. D Grant says, CT, you rather have a point guard that can guard Cade SGA or someone that is a good ball handler? Um, that's a fair point. I do think there's just going to be so much cross matching. I would play Diawara more minutes. I want to see Diawara in action, and we'll roll some more highlights from last night. Diawara palming the basketball, throwing zip passes around cross court, using his length, knocking down a three as well. It's great to see Diawara flash these signs. Don't forget, people even thought he was going to stay in Europe and not even come over, to the States, right? Now, he hasn't exactly been a mainstay, but his, dare I say, exceeded his expectations with Diawara being, semi-playable, throughout the regular season. You could definitely make the case that he needs to play more, especially against those games against Phoenix, um, the Hawks game as well against those wings. We see the blueprint with the Hawks situation. Uh, Now the Hawks, they haven't got off to a great start since trading Trae Young. Hawks fans are livid with CJ McCollum. So I thought CJ McCollum was going to be a fit and help them out, but that hasn't been the case so far. He's just been a chuck. Has CJ, right? And maybe he's not vibing with the young guys that they have, the young wings. But we do know that was a salary dump from Trae Young. McCollum's going to be an expiring deal, so it's not going to be a long-term marriage with that situation. Now, do the Hawks trade Kristaps Porzingis? That's a name, fam. Now, if a player gets bought out, fam, and they're earning more than 14 million, they're earning more than the mid-level, the Knicks won't be able to claim them on waivers from a buyout. The Knicks can only claim a buyout dude if his salary is below 14 million. So let's say someone big gets bought out, a crazy name, and they're on a big salary. The Knicks won't be able to claim them off a buyout, unfortunately. But we can claim a buyout guy if his salary is, moderate to low. So look out for some buyout names. Like, unfortunately, even if Sexton was to get bought out, let's say no trade could come, for Charlotte and Sexton, the Knicks wouldn't even be able to claim Sexton, unfortunately. So I do think the trade is the most likely route. Fam, I do think we are going to see some activity. We are going to see some trades, most likely on the margins. Maybe a little bit of future proofing as well, in the way of, in the case of Mitch's free agency or Deuce's impending free agency. we'll see what happens. As we've talked about. Now, another point I want to make is Josh Hart, right? Look at Hart's third year, the 27-28 season. That's highlighted in the pink or the red, right? Coincidentally, that is a year that is the team option, and that is the year that Miles McBride is the free agent. Now, perfect situation in my opinion, right? Whatever they got to do with Hart being on board, a loyal for the cause. Maybe I'm clutching here right now, but ideally Hart's play, stay strong, but after next season, it becomes realistic that the Knicks aren't going to offer him, a major deal, and they can come to some kind of meeting of the minds that Deuce McBride, the passing of the torch, where, Hart's salary comes off the books, or, a lower number, and we extend him for a lower deal. We decline his team option, and we'll look after him, obviously, but we see what we can do. And then Deuce McBride gets to stick around and take some of that bread. So you got the start of the 27-28 season where Hart's money can be declined and Deuce McBride needs to get paid. So that is potentially some nice future planning for Brock Aller and Leon Rose, right? Because I would love Miles McBride to be like Mitch in terms of a long-term Knick, one of the longest tenured Knicks. He needs to get paid, and by after next season, assuming Hart's 32, his plays decline a little bit, probably still going to be a very productive player, but not at 22 million, We'll see what happens. Maybe there is already a handshake agreement that the Knicks pick up that option and honor Josh Hart for his cause, for his service. But I do think that's an interesting thing to look out for, fam, in terms of these salary slots, because we're at the second apron now. If a guy's money comes off the books, we can't use that money unless that player is, that contract is traded or declined. So we've got to see what happens with that situation. Sadu Barry says Dylan Jones and Diawara. Yeah, looking out for the future wing situation. I like what I see from Dylan Jones so far as well, but I'm loving what I'm seeing from Landry Shamet too at the moment. So I do think Dylan Jones is going to be on that two-way for the rest of the season, but he's going to be hopefully getting some burn, as well as Diawara. Glenn says CT Towns got to stop with the offensive fouls. He leads the league, and play some damn D. Yeah, I agree. Whilst I don't think it's his strong suit, we know the situation with Cat's, skill set, his abilities. He just needs to be more disciplined as well, and I think he'll clean it up. I think Towns will clean it up in by the postseason. Don't forget, the regular season is all about, ironing out the kinks, getting on the same page, and locking in for when the real deal, when the real deal hits, right? Coincidentally, the real deal is Deuce McBride coming up. Let's roll all of Deuce's highlights. 14.6 rebounds off the bench, right? All of that for a $4 million player is highway robbery right now. And we still have Deuce under contract for one more year. I wouldn't be surprised if we engage in early extension talks on Deuce McBride if we do clear up some salary. Because, Deuce is a guy, he's shown us the loyalty. It would be nice to repay that loyalty, and keep him around early and get that extension. Dirty says no reason Diawara can't buy a couple minutes every game. Guys shouldn't either start or not play. Yeah, it's kind of Tibbs-esque. You start or you don't play. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, Mike Brown, mad scientist. He did a lot of that with the Sacramento Kings as well. Um, I think some coaches, what I'm noticing now, they're so hell bent on the data. They forget the eye test. They ignore common sense sometimes, and they're just too data driven in terms of like, 5-man lineups or opponent strengths, weaknesses, and all of that. Sometimes you just got to play your guys, and deal with the consequences if they can defend. Um, Now the pleasant surprise is, yeah, the 3-point ball. Diawara is confident, knocking it down, spacing it. It did look a little bit. His 3-point ball looked shoddy in the French league during those highlights before the draft, but he's clearly gotten him better in that situation. Now, think of Diawara in a couple of years. If he could be a 36% shooter from downtown, he's going to be real 3-and-D, right? You could be looking at the next Herb Jones situation or Trey, right? Even if it's a Dollar Tree store version of those guys, right? Don't forget, with the 56th overall pick. Um, Now on Hart, um, New York City says no one can replace Hart on this team. The heart of the team. Dirty Dan says Hart with the starters continues to be a terrible combo, and we just keep doing it. Yeah, it's just a bit of both, I guess. Hart is he's the glue. I agree, but he's also a guy that has to stay aggressive. I like him screening for Brunson because he's another ball handler. Those two can play the 2-man game. Those two can actually play pick and roll together. I like that. I also think Hart has to continue to not hesitate and let the 3-point ball fly to honor that, and teams playing defense too. What I was talking about Hart is just purely down the line. I'm not talking about Hart right now, right? In case you misunderstood, I'm talking about Hart after next season, right? That's literally 18 months from now. He is 30, 31. We do know that play can decline from players over 30. We do got to see how that plays out. But if I'm picking on what I'm seeing right now, Deuce McBride is a starter. I'm taking Deuce McBride from a production standpoint in 18 months, if it's similar money. We'll see. I think Hart's defense has regressed as well. We're going to see how that plays out. Now, yes, this is the highlight from Diawara, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Shea NBA, salute. This is like a LeBron James, Luka Doncic-esque palming the basketball away from the big that's playing the high coverage on the screen. Understanding the coverage enough to know what the teams, to know that teams that play high, they tag the roller, throwing a dart to the weak side shooter in Tyler Kolek. Now, this is a very advanced read for a guy who's 20, 21, early into his rookie season. Now, late in the ball game, but a lot of flashes that we like to see from a Diawara fam, right? Reading of the floor as well as executing the pass and the read, palming the basketball away. So, man, he is raw, but as we see here, the deep 3 ball from Mo as well last night. That's going to go on the scouting report soon. All it takes is to start knocking down a couple of these shots. He'll find himself on that scouting report, right? He can knock it down right now. He needs to do it more on a consistent basis. But, I mean, to think that Pacome Dardier was the first round pick and Diawara was the guy that we took, basically at the end of the draft. And Diawara looks more ready. Now, I still believe in Pacome Dardier as an NBA prospect. Is it looking like a good pick in the first round? It was late first round. He's only 19, 20. Again, players can pop, later, with more experience. But yeah, mentally, physically, he just doesn't look like he's ready to contribute to winning right now. Just Pacome Dardier. But I do think Pacome, you could see the flashes in terms of what might be, in the coming years. But it's just not going to be on the New York Knicks right now. But Diawara's defense and size and length is more of a fit with our New York Knicks. Just going back to the Clarkson thing, fam, real quick, right? The vision now that the Knicks organization could be looking at could be like, okay, thanks for your service, Clarkson, but we want to give Mo Diawara more minutes. So that could be a legit possibility. This could be them trying to find more minutes for Landry and someone else. You got to clear up space to add someone else. So I think that's a fascinating storyline right now. I mean, I just thought Clarkson would stay in the rotation for the rest of the season, but you know, we coincide with this slide and the New York Knicks struggling recently defensively. You got to. There's only one way to get better defensively. Is just play better defenders, or guys pick it up. And I still think Clarkson's a gunner that you keep around because I could see him winning a playoff game. I could see him helping you win multi playoff games, like Cameron Payne. Don't forget, helped us win that big game against Detroit. Right? He's already done it. He can get crazy. He can win a game like he did in the NBA Cup. But look, right now, I guess, when you look at Landry and what might be with his potential, or an Alvarado or a Missi coming in, right? We'll see how that plays out. Um, Again, confirmation on the putback today from Mike Scotto that the Knicks are firmly interested in Yves Missi José Alvarado. There's been less credible reports that the Knicks are interested in James Nagy. Not James Nagy, sorry, Najee Marshall. We already have James Nagy. Najee Marshall. So hopefully that gets explored because I think that's a good fit. That's exactly what we need. Another ball handling wing that can actually score the rock. Let's take a look at the action around the league. I think games are just starting to tip off. We have the Sixers versus the Rockets, right? So we're looking at the Rockets in that one. We got the Magic versus the Hornets. So let's see if the Hornets can be competitive in that one. What else do we have? The Miami Heat versus the Blazers out west. That's later today. We have no Pistons. We have no Boston Celtics, who faced off the other day, fam, as well. We had the Raptors pick up a win yesterday in Sacktown, so that we know, man, it's tight. Look how tight it is, right? If the Knicks lose a couple in a row, man, they could find themselves down to fifth, right? It's kind of crazy with the crazy season the Cavaliers have had, man. They've only got one less win and only two more losses with how much Cleveland have underachieved, right? And they've looked a mess at times. The fact that they're only 1.5 games back is crazy right now. And the Magic, right? Trading for Desmond Bain, trying to win right now. They're all the way down in 7th too. So I think the Magic are going to be aggressive. Goga Batadze, Jonathan Isaac, they might be open to trading Suggs, like we know. They're going to look to get more shooting around Paolo, and then I think they're going to make a long-term, decision on Paolo, maybe in the summer. They might already be at that point. You look at a guy like Franz Wagner taking that leap. They might not be ready to give up on the pair yet, but they're definitely going to try to make a winning move this trade deadline, and then I think they're going to see how that plays out. But with their salary payroll increasing and giving up 5 first-round picks for Desmond Bain, right? You can't be too happy being in the 7th seed. right? That's play-in territory, right? Nobody's content with that kind of talent that they've got. They've got a very deep roster as well, and to be in the play-in, only 4 games over 500 in the weaker East, right? And, on a year where Jason Tatum isn't even healthy yet, the Raptors, taking a step up, the Pistons taking a step up. I think the Orlando Magic are going to be thinking like we got to do something. I think the Magic got to be thinking they've got to do something, fam. They've still got an issue with the shooting right now, and they're still the better team in Florida. The Miami Heat are down in 8th right now. Pat the Rat is going to be circling that Giannis situation. Best believe that. Um, on the Cat situation, New York City says Towns 60 mil. Yeah, it is what it is. But he's still a top 5 center. Yeah, Cat has that talent where he just can win your games, and then also, I guess, depending on how locked in he is, can struggle at times as well. I think it's all about fit for the New York Knicks. Can they get some more, defensive-minded guys around them? I think, again, the organization just got to make a call on Mitch in the summer as well. As I said at the top of tonight's show, fam, I don't think it's been talked about enough because Mitch has been playing so well and he's such a staple of the team that I just don't think it's getting talked about, that his salary completely comes off the books at the end of this season. He's literally going to be an unrestricted free agent, right? And Leon Rose does not like to lose an asset for nothing, right? He would not want to lose an asset for nothing. So they haven't extended him yet. Whether that's Mitch's asking price and agent is too high, or whether the Knicks just don't have the means or the willpower yet to to make a firm offer. Whatever it is, man, it's a big situation that I don't think is getting enough attention right now because of the play being so good. Um, but financially, the Knicks right up against that second apron. Mitch is not going to be earning 12 million on his next contract. If he stays healthy, he's going to be earning north of 18, 16, 18, 20. We just don't know. I think for him to earn 20, he is going to have to play more minutes. Like his minutes are going to have to go up and he's going to have to stay healthy. I don't see a team paying 20 million for a player that can only play, 23 minutes a night. I think, you know, for Mitch's, free agency cause, he will need to play more minutes, but I think they're saving that, for the postseason. Um, Also, should we see more Cat and Mitch together? Is that a pairing that, the Knicks have given up on, or is that something that they're hoping to, to save for the postseason? Um, that's going to be very interesting. With that said, if we want to play faster, we just can't do that with Mitch and Cat. We can dominate the rebounds. We can, shore up the paint defense, but I think if we want to play faster, we want to get out on offense and run. I don't think we're going to be able to play those two together too much, fam. Uh, so yeah, the team only meeting helped a lot. Confidence is back up now. Let's see what we can do. But we need OG Anunoby shooting and defense to improve. Same with McCall, right? Again, talking about our struggles, it's not just been about Cat. It's been somewhat on the coach, Brunson, and Wingstop, right? Not performing to their to their standard, to their level. OG shooting is the biggest regression I think so far, because the start of the season, man, OG was shooting incredible. And we know he has his drops, peaks and valleys during the regular season. We've seen it before. But we know OG usually picks it up right before the playoffs, and he locks in like a demon, right? OG Anunoby in the playoffs, man, some of the best games I've seen him play, right, on the two-way side, right? Um, so hopefully these guys are saving it, right, for the best till last. But obviously, the standings, it's a dicey situation. We need to keep winning right now. Teams are starting to catch up. And also, they might make a big move, fam. Um, Anthony Davis, Sabonis, Zach LaVine, DeRozan, Mathurin, Anthony Simons. There's so many names, man. I think there's going to be quite an active trade deadline. Um, um, Shez V says, Mitch is great until he's hurt or out for half a season. So frustrating. Yeah, and that's why I think the Knicks have played they played the situation great. I wouldn't have committed money to Mitch, right? It's just a business decision right now. We're a very top heavy salary team. Prove that he can stay healthy for a whole season, and then we'll see what we can do. But yeah, he is going to be an unrestricted free agent, and we'll see what his market value is going to be. I think his market value is going to be quite robust if he's healthy, because you look at some up and coming teams that might have a little bit more salary to play with, like a Charlotte. New Orleans payroll isn't too high. Atlanta can free up some books with Kristaps coming off and CJ McCollum. There is some options out there, man. Hopefully it's somewhere out west. If it's not the Knicks, we'll see. But yeah, I don't see him earning any less than 15. I don't know if the Knicks can really spare that kind of cash right now. Buzzer asks, how do I feel about Sabonis? Not very high, fam. Not very high at all. With Sabonis, I think he's a guy that I think could look good with some defensive wings and demons around him, but not with a team with Brunson and or Cat, fam. I think it's going to be struggle town in terms of a fit. But Sabonis has got a skill set. I want to see how it works out with Houston, with Alfred Şengün, similar type player in terms of skilled offensively. But we look at Houston, they've got guys like Steven Adams, to really defend and hold it down. So I think he's kind of a player. I'm done with those kind of players where you gotta work around their weaknesses, So that's why everyone's high on the Giannis thing, man. There's just like, yeah, you could criticize the shooting from Giannis, but I mean, Giannis is going to go to any team and he's going to make that team better. There's just no ifs or buts or debates about it, right? Even shooting be damned. You put Giannis on any team, he makes that team better. You don't even have to think about it. Those players where you got to kind of think about it and you're like, okay, man, does their offense offset their defense? And that's why these Zach LaVines and DeRozans and Sabonis's, like, that's why those are the guys that's like, they're journeymen now, They're just kind of like playing on bad teams, putting up points, but they can't help a team win. Like, the Bulls couldn't win with Zach LaVine. Sacramento Kings can't win with him as well. Ironically, he's got DeRozan alongside him again. That's an interesting situation with those guys. CJ McCollum as well. How much does he help a team, fam? Which is interesting. At least you kind of got a skill set with Mitch, right? Yeah, Mitch has flaws offensively, but he's a guy that's off the ball, right? If you're paying a DeRozan or a LaVine or a Sabonis, right, you need to be able to win with those guys handling the ball a lot. If you're going to pay a guy like Mitch or a player that has a deficiency on one side, if their game is dependent on them not having the ball, it's still workable, because Mitchell Robinson does so much without even touching the basketball. He boxes out. Players have to account for him. He'll tip back, tip ins, block shots, set screens. He does all those things without needing the rock, right? That's why I'll never pay an empty stats guy that has to have the ball to be, maximized. Look at RJ Barrett, right? He could be on his third team right now. He needs the ball to be maximized, right? Now he might end up taking the place of DeRozan or Levine on Sacramento, because there aren't that many teams that have a second or third option slot on a team to win. You know what I mean? Like with Charlotte coming up now, they've got their young guys. Pelicans have got Derek Queen, and they're loading up. Atlanta have got their young guys now as well. The Utah Jazz have got Keontae George. San Antonio, they've got their young guys to work around now. Maybe Washington, the Brooklyn Nets are a team that are still maybe looking for their, 1, 2, and 3 guys. But there's not many teams left. There ain't that many teams left for those guys, right? There will start to be journeymen, I think, moving around the league, especially with these second apron situations now. We'll see what happens with the Bucks as well. I think the teams are going to be more reluctant giving up bad money to fam. D says, what happened to Marjan Beauchamp due to 6'5"? I think shooting. I think, yeah, he just can't lock down a spot in the league right now because he can't shoot consistently. It's hard to have a wing out there that can't shoot. And yeah, he's older now. Teams are reluctant. You've got Diawara, who does the same thing but better, and he's younger as well. Buzzer CT, where do we rank as a team as far as free throw attempts per game? Salute to Buzzer. Great question. We rank very, very low, fam. Last I checked, we were a bottom 10 in free throw attempts per game, fam. Yeah, we ain't getting the whistle, especially with Brunson, Cat, Mikal Bridges not driving to the lane. It's really Mitch and OG that are helping us stay up, from that standpoint. But yeah, like D says in the chat, Jose Alvarado would bring some toughness, some winning mentality. Yeah, just some energy as well, fam. Some speed, some energy, a guy that could pick up full court. Just the kind of a player that we don't have right now, but there is the size limitation. I get it, but you might just want to play Diawara more minutes. Like I said, with Clarkson out of the rotation, they might be interested in playing Dylan Jones or, a guy like Diawara. Landry Shamet is bigger than Clarkson as well and can score more efficiently. So that's a big thing to look at. Can you defend and can you score more efficiently? Clarkson, it's more dribble, dribble, dribble. Yeah, he can hit some tough shots, but he doesn't defend. And I guess the weaknesses might outweigh the pluses right now with Clarkson. But that still doesn't mean he's not a valuable player to have on the end of the bench. You still need backups. It's just, unfortunately, Clarkson is 33. He took a buyout to come to this situation. Now, he ain't a 23-year-old that's willing to just be patient. That's the situation the Knicks are dealing with right now, right? You're a 33-year-old, you took a buyout, you're worried about your next contract. You're not going to be happy getting benched for nobody. So look for a situation where I do think the Knicks might be gauging the interest or have Clarkson in a buyout or a potential multi-team deal with Yabu and Dardier. We'll see what ends up happening, fam. look, a player might get bought out that we might fancy more than Clarkson. We need to free up that spot. So the Knicks might have contingencies lined up. Leon Rose, Brock Aller, they've been doing their diligence for weeks now in terms of what's out there, what could be available, who might get bought out, who could be had, who could be a player that could be extended so they could, their salary could be, continuous. Thing is with Clarkson, he's going to be a free agent, and I don't think we're going to look to re-sign a 33-year-old. Clarkson was always more of a short-term solution, a one and done, potentially like campaign. Malcolm Brogdon, situation. So you will see how that plays out. Yeah, Clarkson, I agree. He's been a respectable dude. He's no BS in the interview, but still humble and helpful, yet knows his worth. Yeah, he's close with Josh Hart, the locker room. He's not any issues in the locker room. So yeah, Clarkson professional. I think it's just down to defense and fit right now. Unfortunately, he's another guy that needs shots, but dribbles a lot, and he's undersized. If we're looking to get more size, we're looking to get bigger and play less guys under 6'3". That's another thing where, don't forget in the playoff scenario, fam, in these tough games, the other team game plans for your weakness. They look at, okay, how can we pick you apart, right? Yeah, Clarkson could score some buckets, but let's go at him on defense when he's on the floor. Let's go at Brunson. Let's take it to Cat. So if you're looking at these teams, in a playoff series, they're going to be looking at your weaknesses, and the less weaknesses you have, the more chance you got to win. So the Knicks just could be looking at it like, or Mike Brown could be looking at it like that. Fam, and if we look at Clarkson's minutes, they've been steadily on the decline, recently. We pick up this, two-way contract guy, Dylan Jones, as well, who does have potential, has had NBA experience too, a triple-double threat at 6'5". We'll see how that plays out. Dink Pate's another guy that we could be trying to free up a roster spot for as well. You just never know, fam. As I'm rolling these Dink Pate highlights, anyone that's missed it, right? The confirmed report from Jonathan Gavoni, Draft Express, right? Rock Nation. We all know about Rock Nation, fam. Been telling teams that Dink Pate does not want a two-way. He's holding out for NCAA eligibility and or a regular roster spot. Right? He doesn't want no two-way. So the Knicks tried, obviously. He declined other teams as well. And the Knicks pivoted and brought in Dylan Jones. But that doesn't mean that Dink Pate isn't a potential pickup. The Knicks might just need to free up a roster spot. We'll see what happens, fam. If they end up cutting Clarkson or trading a couple of those guys, Yabu and Dardier, and opening up a roster spot, if there's a spare roster spot, I would say Dink Pate, have a 2 or 3 year deal, a multi-year deal on a low number, and bank on upside. Give him the Deuce McBride contract, but lower, not $4 million a year, but give him like a 3 or 4 year, $1 or $2 million deal. That way you're kind of covered. If he blows up, you're covered, and he's another guy that you can develop, on a cheap deal. We'll see how that plays out as well, fam. I said at the start of the season, the Knicks just can't keep banking on these campaigns, Clarksons, every year, veteran minimum guy, 33-year-olds, every year you're kind of hoping to sign a new guy like that every year because we're pressed up against the apron. But at some point, you're going to have to try to, bring in your McCullers, Diowaras, Stink Pates, the next Deuce McBride that can be a winning contributor on a low contract, to help the continuity, and so that you're not constantly, trying to bring in, a one and done kind of situation. Now, the good thing about Landry is, he's down for the cause. Landry was from last year. He was early, talking to the Knicks front office saying, I want to come back. And so they made it happen. But we don't know how long that is going to last as well, with that situation. So, good to have Landry stick around. But yeah, let's get that done. Like D Grant says, Yabu, Clarkson out of here, bring in Pate on the roster deal. Yeah, that'd be a smart deal, fam. Now, just to tie in that conversation with the iHeart thing, now it's different kind of situation because iHeart was proven in the league, but iHeart was a backup. Now, a lot of fans have been frustrated recently saying, man, things, the Leon Rose era ended when iHeart left, or, our chances left when iHeart left, because they only offered iHeart a 2-year deal and didn't get his bird rights, full bird rights. If the Knicks had offered iHeart a 3-year deal, he'd probably be a New York Knick still. So let's try and avoid that issue from happening again, where a player blows up and we're forced to pay, or we're unable to pay, right? One thing I want to bring up, right? Now, we haven't focused on the lower end of the bench, right? Look at Ariel Hukporti and look at Mohamed Diawara. They're going to be free agents, right? Now, those two are draft picks. So I think the New York Knicks will have restricted. I think they'll have restricted rights, maybe in the way of Hukporti. Diawara being 1 year, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% sure about, because he was a second round pick as well. But I don't think Diawara has overplayed his value to the point where, we're gonna risk losing him. But the Knicks, it would be nice to find a way to lock down Diawara, on a multi-year deal. Hukporti, again, the story is still out on Hukporti. Some people are already out in terms of, like, he might be third string at best. That might be his NBA ceiling. Would have liked him to make some, improvements in some weakness areas that, he hasn't been able to show yet, unfortunately. Still looks a bit nervous out there, still, a little too handsy, for my opinion, with Hukporti. There's times where he plays good defense straight up. There are times when he just gets a little bit too, like he's on the caffeine, He's worried about his man doing too much. And he's panicking defensively. He's Hukporti. Obviously, offensively, he hasn't shown any, advancement either. His free throw shooting is abysmal. His, jump hooks are a little bit flat. Again, all the things that you that are common for a 58th pick. But I still think, there's a chance Hukporti can improve, get better, and become a second string backup, rotation NBA player. He's just not dependable for the New York Knicks right now, that are trying to win a chip. Now, you still keep him around if you think he can develop, and you work with him in the summer as well. But it looks like the Knicks are looking into other things, like, you got your Missy, Bataze could be had, Jalen Smith, Cisse, Diabate, Dayron Sharp. The Knicks might be looking at more proven situations, with that, fam. Yeah, Buzzer says on the Najee thing opened up Pandora's box. Yeah, I think players have kind of always thought about the players that you're saying, the Those are the guys that never went to college. They've probably always thought like, what would it be like if I went to college? And whilst they still have the eligibility with the NIL money now, that's kind of opened up the Pandora's box, because they can still develop their game. They can get paid more. They can play more minutes, just not at the pro level. But what's probably swinging their factor is they're not getting minutes in the NBA anyway, so it's an easy decision. It's like, okay, I could stick around and get splinters, sitting on the NBA or G League bench, or I could really go back to college and play, earn some mad bread, and be the king on campus kind of situation. So I think, yeah, the NIL things changed the game, man, in terms of like, dudes just want that chill life, no pressure. Najee, Dink Pate would earn a king's ransom, man, if he went to college, especially at 19, with his young upside, eligibility, skill set. He could go back and blow up the college scene, fam, as well. So I'm not surprised why Rock Nation, trying to steer Dink Pate in that direction. And it does look like it's going in that direction, fam, as Jonathan Gavoni is reporting that, he's intrigued by the NCAA eligibility, fam, and declining the two-way deals, right? You would think a dude that can't get to the league would jump at a two-way deal. There's dudes hustling for opportunities that would love to be on an NBA roster on a two-way. The fact that Dink Pate's declining those lets me know that there's plenty of teams that have expressed interest, but he's looking at, developing the game. He's looking at earning more money right now, and he's still so young, fam, as well. I don't think we'd see the Frank Ntilikina situation again if Frank Ntilikina was coming up now. Don't forget, the Knicks drafted Frank Ntilikina. He was like 3 years away from being 3 years away. He was 18, and Phil Jackson gave him a guaranteed first-round pick, 8th overall pick contract. Yeah, that's crazy right now. No team would take Frank Ntilikina if he was that dude coming up now. He'd be doing 5 years in college. He'd be making the same bread he was on, on his contract back then as the 8th overall pick. He'd be making that money in college right now, maybe more than that, because his game just ain't ready. Kevin Knox, maybe the same thing, these Kentucky one and dones, man. A lot of these guys are going to be worried because they could be out of the league in 3, 4, 5 years, if they don't stick around. It's better that they stay in the big program, continue to, work on their game, fam. Yeah, Shez V, do the Knicks retain Najee's rights? They do. So they can't, in the case of Najee, because he already went through the NBA draft, so he can't go on NBA team unless it's the Knicks or the Knicks trade his draft rights, right? With Dink Pate, it's different. Dink Pate went undrafted. So that opened up a world of possibilities for Dink Pate because he never got signed to a two-way or a real deal, and he never got picked up. He never got drafted, right? That is why, another reason, again, ladies and gentlemen, when you're looking at the NBA draft, right, in June, and let's say you get to the 40th picks, and you see these names slide, you're like, man, why isn't that guy picked up yet? Some of these second round picks don't want to get drafted. Some of these late second round picks, if you've slipped out of the first round, you're like, yeah, to hell with this. I want flexibility. And these agents tell the teams, no, they don't want a two-way. They don't want a two-way. Don't pick us up. Don't pick me up. And then you slide out of the draft, and you could do whatever you like, fam, if you didn't go to college. Man, don't remind me, man. We drafted Frank Ntilikina before Donovan Mitchell. We drafted Frank Ntilikina before, no, was it Kevin Knox? Either or, before Devin Booker, fam. I think it was Kevin Knox. We drafted Kevin Knox before Devin Booker, fam. Or maybe it was Frank. Maybe that one was Frank as well. Damn, man. Kevin Knox was before Shea Gilgeous, man. They're on the same team, too. Was it Steve Mills, Scott Perry? Steve Mills, Scott Perry regime with Fizdale. he killed the workout, fam. Kevin Knox killed the workout, and they liked him more than Shea Gilgeous. Man, that killed us right there. Could you imagine if Shea stuck? Brunson and Shea next to each other, fam. We'd be talking about a dynasty. Brunson probably would never have came, actually. Yep, AP says it. Mills and Perry. Salute, man. That was a hell of a workout, apparently. And look, Kevin Knox had that amazing game against West Virginia, fam. That might have even been against Deuce McBride's team. He had that big 30 piece against West Virginia, and they really like Kevin Knox, man. Look, he did look great. Yeah, Kevin Knox did look very raw, but the upside, yeah, it was there. It just once he got into the league, he was just too scrawny. Was a nice athlete. Got drafted to the wrong situation, but was too soft in the end. Like Kevin Knox was like another kind of a Mikal Bridges in terms of contact. You know, he couldn't deal with contact at that point, man. Yeah, we know the Summer League game was another story, fam, against Zion too. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll get ready to wrap this thing up, but let's take a quick look at the schedule, and I'll do a quick game check right now as we have the action around the league. We hope Philadelphia can lose to the Houston Rockets, and they're tied at 44 apiece halfway through the second, right? But some other upside is that the Charlotte Hornets, as I projected, fam, are blowing the doors off the Orlando Magic, right? Where we at? Here we go. Magic 28, Charlotte Hornets 47, ladies and gentlemen. So the Charlotte Hornets have been struggling recently. They've had some success this season, but they've dipped a little bit recently. Now they're bouncing back, and the Orlando Magic, man, looks like trade rumors and buzz affecting them, man. Let's see what happens in the second half with the Hornets up by 19 over the Magic, man. That's unacceptable for a team with the talent level that the Magic have, right? Jalen Suggs is always injured. They might be looking at seeing what they can do to retool their squad. Paolo Banchero hurt as well. What do you guys think with the Orlando Magic, man? That's not a good look right there. If Giannis is available, they'll be trying to make some moves as well. Yeah, we've got tomorrow off as well. I think Philly rest, and then we both get at it on Saturday night. Knicks at Philly, a return to the Wells Fargo for JB and Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges as well. So that is a situation that's going to be closely watched. We talked about the Knicks' current and future salary situation, right? I don't think there's going to be any major trades right now based on today's reports. Mitch, Cat, most likely to stay. Unless Giannis, if the Giannis thing pops off, then we know Cat is going to be in those conversations. We know that either OG or Mikal or maybe even Mitch might be in those conversations. But we don't know yet. You know, we don't know what Giannis is going to do. We don't know what the Bucks plan to do. It is looking like it's going to be a marginal sort of tweak on the squad. But let's watch out for the rotation. Is Clarkson going to continue to be out? Does Dardier or does Diawara get any minutes? Is Kolek still in the doghouse? Right. We'll find out closely. Obviously, in a big game, playoff type game, Mike Brown is going to play his preferred rotation. You know, he's not going to be tweaking too much. He's going to be going for the dudes that he thinks can win us the game, right? Will we see another triple game ball type performance, man? 54-point beatdown, smackdown on the Brooklyn Nets. That's going to give these guys confidence now. And we'll see how many guys in the rotation as we get closer to a possible trade, right? I do think we're going to get real close to trades starting to drop. Maybe the framework of other teams, links, going to continue to heat up. And we'll continue to do more content and talk about it. As the Charlotte Hornets, man, the Magic. I think some teams out east are going to go for it. You know, a lot of people think this is wide open, and I agree. Like, who the hell knows? Let's say you get to the second round and Detroit suffer an injury, right? Nobody's going to predict that. Nobody can predict if a major player on one of these teams gets hurt. That can change the game, man. It could be a clear pathway to the NBA Finals, man. The East has never been this wide open, fam. What if somebody out west gets injured on OKC, right? Victor Wembanyama can't stay healthy either, fam, as well. That's why these players like Giannis, right? They don't like to throw seasons away. They don't like to waste seasons because they know anything can happen. You know, the bounce of a ball, you know, a player getting suspended, anything, anything can happen, man. If you're in the mix, you got a chance to win it right now. Phoenix is a surprise team out west for me this season. Um, you know, I do think Atlanta will be looking to make a shake-up. I do think Porzingis is probably going to get traded. Um, we'll see what plays out, man, with that one. Salute to everyone in the building, man. And we'll catch you. So we've got tomorrow off, and then we're back at it, man. Saturday night in Philly. And we get it then. We'll talk about the latest as well. Let's go Knicks. And hopefully we can get further up the standings and get back to that second spot and put the pressure back on Boston. I think Boston is going to make a move as well. So let's see with that one, man. But peace. Let's get it.